There's nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. Hey Bleeders, welcome to the second episode in our What to Expect When You're on Submission series. Today I am bringing you a conversation with the wonderful Hannah Howard, author of the memoirs Feast and Plenty, both fantastic books that I have read and loved. And Hannah is not only a returning guest, you should check out her previous episode, but she was also one of the first people to read an early draft of my manuscript for Girl Gone Wild. This was back when I was taking a catapult generator, and now Girl Gone Wild has found a home with Trio House Press. So despite all of our hell talk, there are happy endings in publishing. It just takes a while. In this interview, Hannah mentions her editor, Morgan Parker, and Morgan just so happened to be my MFA advisor at Antioch this past semester. This conversation with Hannah took place before Morgan and I started working together, but I loved working with her. She really helped me crack the structure for my new memoir, and she's an incredible writer in her own right. And I just adore these little 6 degrees of literary Kevin Bacon moments. So this episode with Hannah is part explainer, part pep talk. You know we need one. Hannah gets real about rejection and what really happens behind the scenes in traditional publishing. Plus, she shares some seriously solid advice for surviving the submission slog. So without further ado, here is Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Howard. I'm the author of the memoirs Feast, True Love in and Out of the Kitchen, and Plenty, a memoir of food and family. I've been chatting to a really good friend of mine. We've been in a writing group together for 12 years now, and she is super talented and prolific, and she's a fiction writer, and she's written multiple novels, and she finally found this wonderful, very fancy agent. And after 18 months, I want to say, of crazy edits, they're out on submission with her novel manuscript, and I'm getting these text updates for her every day, another rejection, I don't know if I can handle this. This is too much. This is so hard. How does anyone survive this? What fresh hell is this? And I'm just immediately brought back to my first book, Feast, was sold with a book proposal. And I just remember so well at the time I was working as a copywriter for Marie's Cheese in Long Island City at this big warehouse in Queens. And I just remember crying in the bathroom because just another rejection. And it just felt like so much. Yeah, it's a lot. And then I went out on submission with a also wonderful agent and got back so many rejections. Some of which I remember also being incredibly touched by many rejections because they would be really kind and thoughtful and really picked up on a lot of what I was trying to do with the book. And really, I felt very seen. But then it was ultimately a no thank you for whatever reason. Even I remember one no thank you was because, we published a food related memoir a year ago.
Oh.
And I was like, what? So what? This is different. Who cares? But the reasons are rarely personal, but of course it feels so personal because it's a little piece of you, right?
How long did it take that first time?
It took several months. Yeah, it took several months. It was the second round when we ended up getting a yes and a maybe with revisions. And
Okay.
so I remember we asked the yes if they would wait because the revision publisher seemed like it could be worth pursuing. And I remember the revisions that they asked for. My book was about working in restaurants and recovering from an eating disorder. And they asked, can there be more behind the scenes restaurant stuff and more sex? So I thought, yeah, those things were already in there. So it wasn't it didn't feel like an unreasonable ask. So I remember, okay, so let's just add some more of those things. I went through and really gave it my best try. And then I don't remember what they asked for next, but I remember that it was completely, then they said, oh, actually, can we have more of this and that was completely unrelated to those things? And I kind of felt like, wait, but what about
Yeah.
the sex in the restaurant insider stuff? So these people were feeling a little bit like difficult.
Uh-huh.
And meanwhile, the editor that I ended up working with, she went to college with me and we had a poetry class together. And she's actually a wonderful poet, Morgan Parker. She was an editor for Little A at the time. And I was just like, oh, I want to work with Morgan. Like
Yeah.
we both lived in Brooklyn. She got it. She was so smart. She was so insightful. So it felt like an easy choice. But it took a lot of no's, a lot of waiting, a lot of tears to get to that.
Oh, goodness. Did you know what to expect going in?
But it was a happy ending.
Yes, that is a happy ending. Going into it, were you just totally blind, or did you have some expectation of how it would go? Like, did you know other writers who had been through a similar process?
No, not so much. Like I also was kind of lucky slash overly ambitious. So I was a pretty young at the time. I was in my late 20s. And the writers who I did know who published books were less peers and kind of like maybe mentors or professors or people who were in that sort of position. And one of my frustrations that I'm like hoping, and I think you're doing really good work to remedy this, and I hope to do the same, is like people were so opaque about the whole process of this
Yeah.
and kind of acting like it was some sort of like secret society that I couldn't be privy to, though that was how it felt anyway when I was on the other side of it. And I just feel like there's no need for it to be that way. And I really love talking about like the process of all this. And I had no idea what was going on. And I was really lucky to have an amazing agent who really held my hand. And I'd be like, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? And she was very patient and transparent and just shared. So I feel really grateful she's still my agent. But I think that was part of what made the process so scary is just the complete like lack of insight into like how it actually works and what happens and what was going to happen next at any given moment.
Yeah, so I almost felt like I had less skin in the game in the getting the agent process. I was like, whatever, it's a numbers game. Like I was less attached at that stage. And then at this stage, it almost feels like more precious. Though I totally understand what you're saying about
Mhm.
like some of the no's feel like yeses almost because they're so like nice. But did you feel that same way? Like I almost was less attached in the getting the agent than in the book being out on submission.
Yeah, because I feel like you're just that much further down the road. You have invested that
Yeah.
much more work and time and blood, sweat, and tears and your heart. And so, yeah, it's like I did feel that way too. Just that, right. It's like at this point, it was representing years of work and something that I always cared about. But the more you put into it, the more you become attached and committed. And like the more also you can see that these Microsoft Word pages or whatever I write in Microsoft Word, like that you really want them to be more than Microsoft Word pages, right? And that desire for me to just like grew and grew.
Oh, yes. So during the process, it sounds like your agent was great. So did your agent give you a list? Did you know who you were going out to? Did you have any involvement in that? Or since it was your first time, you were kind of just like, you're the professional, like you pick?
Yeah, I mean, she was like very great at including me in this process. And she would always ask, like, do you have anyone in mind? Do you have any thoughts? And right, usually my answer was like, I trust you, because I did trust her and I didn't know. But I do remember looking at some authors that I admired to see who their publishers were. So I feel like that was kind of my only way to navigate this. But she actually, and as any good agent does, had these relationships to kind of know, like, oh, I remember her saying, like, oh, there's this, she just moved from this house to this house, or they changed imprints, and I think they'd be open to this. And I was just grateful for her knowledge and wisdom.
So going into the second time you were on submission, first of all, did you go out with a full manuscript or was it on proposal? And did you feel like you knew more about the book proposal process so you could do that differently? Or how did you approach it the second time?
Yeah, so I part of my contract with my first book, Feast, was like a right of first refusal, which apparently is a sort of
Oh,
common thing. So that meant that yeah, so I could refuse them, right? Like I could show my publisher I think they specifically said in that contract like 3 chapters. It was nice because it felt
okay.
like a little bit less demanding. I also had so at the time Morgan Parker, my first editor, she left to go become a full-time poet and writer, and I had a new editor assigned to me, which was a really lucky accident that I also loved this editor. And we developed a good relationship, and she started to ask me like, "What are you thinking about next?" And really kind of helped me flesh out the idea for Plenty, my second book. So when it came time to submit the proposal, the first 3 chapters and outline, it made sense to me that it would go to them first, and then I remember talking to my agent about if we should shop it around, and she was kind of like, "You could, but, like, let's ask them for a little more money, and you've had a pretty
Uh-huh.
good experience, so maybe this is, like, a great place to continue the relationship." So, it felt like a pretty easy decision to just stick around with Little A, my publisher, for both books.
Awesome. And they were interested, they were like, yes, when they got the chapters, they were like, let's do it.
Yeah, they were like, "Yes, let's do it." They were very enthusiastic, but just, as we're being, like, open here, I showed them a 3rd proposal that they were like, "No, thank you." So, it
Oh,
wasn't like a guaranteed yes, but they were very enthusiastic about Plenty.
nice. So I guess where are you at today? Like you've had these two books out. Is there something else coming down the pike or
Yeah, so right, so I wrote 2 books that were both food-related memoirs, and then I wrote a 3rd book proposal about multi-level marketing, a nonfiction book proposal, totally different.
oh, fascinating. I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, probably, and I was really excited about this because it's been a fascination of mine, and I did a lot of research, and we got close, we got some publishers that, called for meetings, but ultimately it has not yet found a home. And so I have this new project that's completely uncharted territory for me. I'm trying to use some of that research and work on fiction. So
Oh,
I'm just trying something new. It's totally new. And I have no idea how, where, what's going to come of it, but it feels really exciting and really terrifying to be just like trying something that I have not done before in any way.
oh, that's exciting. I'm curious, how are you thinking about, for me, it's so hard to let something I love go. Like for that nonfiction version of the multi-level marketing, are you like, maybe this is going to have a resurgence in 5 years and like maybe, I could go out with it again? Or are you like, this is dead?
Oh, I would never say it was dead. Like I always have like a little flicker of hope. You
Yeah.
never know, right? Like I
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you never know, and so I am not sure what's gonna become of it. I love the idea of turning it into fiction because I feel like as creative people, we're like we plant these seeds and we don't know, like, you don't know what form a project is gonna take, especially if you're
Mhm.
out with submission. It's so out of your hands, right? Like, you don't know who's gonna say yes, what they're gonna want from it, but I feel like we just keep doing our thing, and I am optimistic that all this work I put into it is for something. I just don't know yet what that's gonna look like.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good takeaway. So, do you have any advice for writers who are new to being on submission in terms of, I mean, it could be practical advice, like, how to politically handle it or, whatever, or like emotional advice, like how to stay sane?
Yeah, I don't have the practical advice is kind of like you've gotten so far if you're on submission, like you've done the hard stuff, right? Like you and your laptop or your notebook, like you've done that. And so now it's out of your hands, which is like amazing and awful.
Yeah.
So then that's where my emotional advice comes in, where I think like distraction is the best. Like it's a great time to like start a new project that's completely different, whether that's a writing project or like a different kind of life project. I don't know, like become a baker. I don't know. Like I think wherever you can kind of channel because it's so hard. Like as writers, it's very tangible in a way to be able to like sit down and write something. But then to be on
Mhm.
submission, you're not doing anything. Like it's just so that's for me like so hard to just feel like okay now it's gone. And so I think if there's something else that you can do that's unrelated, worry about that and then trust like that something amazing is going to come of it and it might not be like exactly what you had planned, but it will probably be something.
Could be even better. Yeah.
Could be even
Amazing.
better.
Is that yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience being on submission or that people should know about the topic?
I just feel like talking to writers, fellow writers, like I think we are so brave to put ourselves and our voices and all of it out there into the world. So I just like I'm just proud of anyone who's on submission because it's not easy. Like it's really cool that you've gone like 90. I think by that point you've really gone like 95% of the way.
Oh, yes. That's a good place to end. Thank you so much to Hannah. I saw that Hannah is actually teaching an upcoming book proposal class, so check out her Substack, Letters from Hannah, for details. And thank you for joining me for this episode of The Bleeders. Oh, writing is so much better with friends. I'm your host, Courtney Kosak, and hey, let's connect on social media. I am at Courtney Kosak. Last name is Kosak. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere, baby. So come find me. And make sure you're signed up for the Bleeders Companion Substack for all kinds of newsletter exclusives. There is a link to sign up for that in the episode description. I send out awesome stuff to my free subscribers. And I also have a paid subscription where I take you behind the scenes of all my best bylines. I've written about my return to stand-up comedy and how I got ready to crush my showcase, my MFA, and whether or not I think it is worth it. I also have some mini workshops behind the paywall. So there is a link to sign up for the newsletter in the episode description. Make sure you join me over on Substack and join me right back here next week for another all-new episode. In the meantime, happy bleeding!